through a crop-based biodiversity, natural resources and animals. Tropical Asia is economically and physiogeographically rich. There are 16 countries of tropical Asia ranging in size from around 610 square kilometers to 3 million square kilometers. Its population is dominantly rural. However, in 1995, a census showed that a region with 6 out of 25 of the large cities, the population is 1.6 billion, likely to reach 2.4 billion in 2025. Climate in tropical Asia is subject to seasonal weather patterns with the 2 monsoons and the amount of tropical cyclones in the 3 core areas of cyclogenesis. The climate varies over several environmental factors such as growing urbanization, land industrialization and economic development, the opposite land degradation, environmental issues, and increased pollution. Bionetwork. In tropical Asia, momentous elevational lifts on the ecosystems on the mountains show change in distribution and behavior of the rainforest. In Thailand, for instance, the area of tropical forests could increase from 45% to 80% of the total forest cover, while in Sri Lanka, a substantial change in dry forest and decrease in wet forest might occur, with predictable increases in evapotranspiration and rainfall changeability. Likely a negative impact on the viability of freshwater wetlands will occur, resulting in contraction and desiccation. Sea level and temperature rises are the most likely major climate change-related stresses on ecosystems. Coral reefs might be capable of surviving this intensification, but suffer bleaching from high temperatures. Landward migration of mangroves and tidal wetlands is likely to be inhibited by human infrastructure and human activities. Coastal lands. Coastal lands, in particular, are very vulnerable to major climate changes, especially on seas. Particularly heavily settled and intensified used low-level coastal plains, deltas, and islands are particularly susceptible to coastal erosion and land loss, sea flooding and barrage. Especially vulnerable to coastal erosion and land loss, inundation and sea flooding. Upstream movement of the saline, freshwater front and seawater incursion into freshwater lenses. Mainly at risk are large delta regions of Bangladesh, Myanmar, Vietnam and Thailand, and the low-lying areas of Indonesia, Malaysia and the Philippines. Socio-economic effects may be noticeable to major cities and ports, tourist resorts, artisanal and commercial fishing and coastal agriculture, and infrastructure development. Global studies have expected the dislodgement of several millions of people from the region's coastal zone, probably a 1-meter rise in sea level. Hydrology. In tropical Asia, the Himalayas are crucial to the provision of water of the continental monsoon. Augmented temperatures and seasonal variability could cause a backdrop of glaciers and increasing danger from glacial lake outburst floods. Then, a diminution of average flow of snow-fed rivers, mixed with an increase in peak flows and sediment yield, could have major effects on hydropower generation, urban water supply and agriculture. Supply of hydropower generation from snow-fed rivers can occur in the short term, though not in the long term. Runoff snow-fed rivers might change as well. As stated before, an increased amount economic, agriculture, and industrial resources can affect climate, but it can put an extra stress on water. Lower-level basins are expected to be most affected. Hydrological changes on island and drainage basins will be relatively low to tropical Asia, despite those relate to sea rise. Food ration. The sensitivity of major cereal and tree crops, changes in temperature, moisture and CO2 concentration of the magnitudes estimated for the region has been done in many studies. One instance is the influences on rice fields. Wheat yield and sorghum yield imply that any increase in production associated with CO2 fertilization will most likely be offset by reductions in yield from temperature or moisture changes. Even though climate compression may result huge changes in crop yields, storage, and distribution, the continuing effect of the region-wide changes is tentative because of varietal disparity, local disparity in emergent season, crop management, etc., and the vulnerability of agricultural areas to periodic environmental hazards, such as floods, droughts, and cyclones. Human health. The occurrence and level of some vector-borne diseases are anticipated to rise with global warming. Malaria, schistosomiasis and dengue, that are significant causes of humanity and morbidity in tropical Asia, are very sensitive to climate and are likely to spread into new regions on the margins of currently widespread areas as a result of climate change. Lately affected populations initially would go through higher fatality rates. According to one study, specifically focused on climate influences on infectious disease in present vulnerable regions, a growth in epidemic potential of 12 to 27% for malaria and 31 to 47% for dengue, and a decrease of schistosomiasis of 11 to 17%, are expected under a range of GCM scenarios through climate change. Waterborne and water-related infectious diseases, already accounting for the majority of epidemic emergencies in the area, are also expected to increase when high temperatures and higher humidity are placed over on existing conditions. An estimated upsurge in population, urbanization, reduction of water quality and other trends. Tropical destinations. Perhentian Islands, Malaysia. The Perhentian Islands is a group of two small islands in northeastern Malaysia, Perhentian Besar and Perhentian Kecil. Small abandoned of Susudara, Seringi and Rawa lie off Kecil. The area belongs to Pulau Redang National Marine Park, which is a marinal site especially for fishing. In Malay, the word Perhentian means point to stop, referring to the Hori Roll as a waypoint for traders between Bangkok and Malaysia. The islands were sparingly inhabited by fishermen for centuries, although tourism accounts now for most economic activity. In the Perhentian, the most common activities are scuba diving, sunbathing, and snorkeling. The Perhentian offers detailed diving and draw diving skills. Competition for dives is competitive, though quite cheap, averaging at Rm 60–80 per dive, depending on how many dives done and a person brings their own gear. There are 5 dive centers on Kecil's Long Beach: Spice Divers, Coral Sky Divers, Sea Dragon Divers, Turtle Bay Divers and Sunlight Divers. For snorkeling, all resorts rent out snorkeling gear and organize snorkeling tours throughout the islands. General snorkeling spots on Besar include Teluk Pau, Shark Point and Tanjung Basi. Sharks the most commonly seen on boat at a very small beach between Shark Point and the Teluk Dalam large beach. Turtles are most commonly viewed in the middle of the beach in front of Perhentian Island Resort, where the sandy bottom is covered with algae. Many of the smaller resorts of the island offer buffet-style meals with a variety of Western and Malaysian dishes. Larger beaches, such as the Pasir Panjang, offer a greater variety of eating options meals. Since most of the island imports seafood, it is served several times on mainland. Mainly people travel to the islands by the provincial capitals Kota Baru or Kuala Terengganu. Although the nearest railroad station is Tanah, most tourists prefer Kota Baru for better service. Since the islands have neither road roads nor airport. Arriving to the islands requires a rough speedboat trip with 2 large outboard motors. On the islands, other than from walking, the only way of transport are water taxis. Due to the eastern monsoon, the season in the Perhentian is effectively limited to the period between April and October. Beyond this, the seas can be extremely rough and most space options are closed. Railay, Thailand. Railay, or Railay in Thailand, is a tourist area located on the Andaman coast of Thailand, in Krabi province. It is largely known as a rock climbing spot open to climbers from all over the world and for its gigantic limestone. A peninsula surrounded by ocean and mountains. Final entrée can only be by boat. Longtails leave from Aonang and Krabi, whose towns are the gateways to Railay. Another way of access to Railay is on the regular ferries that run between Koh Lanta, Koh Phi Phi, and Phuket from Bangkok. Flights go to Krabi and Phuket, direct bus services, and trains to Surat Thani and connections by bus. The topography of the Railay is in 4 primary areas. Phra Nang is a one white sand beach on the southern tip of the peninsula. Railay is the mangrove side of the peninsula, used by longtails to from Krabi. Railay, a fine white sand beach with shallow water, where most longtails arrive from Aonang. Then, Tun Sai, which is a cove around the corner from Railay West. Rock climbers and backpackers and practice climbing. Boracay Island, Philippines. The Boracay Island of the Philippines is a vivid island noted by long wide sand beaches among the popular beach destinations such as Indonesia, Thailand, and Malaysia. Boracay can only be reached by ferry from Cataclan. SIA serves up to 28 flights a day. Each flight about is 35 minutes from Manila to Cataclan Airport. Another way is through the Kalibo Airport on the other side of Aklan Island. From Kalibo, visitors take a 2-hour ride to Cataclan. 3 transportations get tourists from Kalibo to Catlacan: minivans, buses and other rental vehicles. Wildlife. Vertebrates are marked by their ability to fly. Not only are birds able to fly, but sea animals such as fish and reptiles for years have flown. Some fish jump out of the water to escape predators, expand the large pectoral fins and glide nearly hundreds of yards. As well, many frogs have long webbed, elongate fingers and toes that function like parachutes when they leap from the leaves and branches of trees to glide across the forest. Several groups of mammals, for example bats, colugos, and rodents, have developed many different ways to move through the air. The first flyers were frigate bird-looking pterosaurs, whom were also the first reptiles capable of flight and varied in size from chickens to giant creatures with wingspans of over 16 meters. However, the most affluent flying reptiles of all time probably were the dinosaurs and the birds today. In Southeast Asia, however, the ability to fly in modern, non-avian reptiles is out of control and has changed alone at least 3, maybe 4 times for lizards, and once in snakes. What would draw such mammals to tropical Asia? Well, there would be almost no alarming sounds or people to intimidate them. In Southeast Asia, the Agamadidae holds gliding lizards that are arboreal, diurnal, prominent predators who signal another by puffing out the throats and expanding the chest to show the radiant color patterns. As well, they jump from branch to branch for prey or to escape predation. When threatened, green-crested lizards leap from one tree to next, splay out the limbs, and expand the ribcages during flight. Open surfaces are often the place where Draco-gilding lizards communicate with each other. When not flying, the heads are usually seen sitting head up on the trunks of the trees, the wings creatively folded to the bodies. Most of the day is spent feeding on ants up and down trees, making for the majority of the diet. Once in a while, they'll want to change outings and leap from the tree, extend the ribs to open the wings, and glide to the next tree. The degree and speed of the glide depends on a couple of aspects: the height of the lizard on the tree and the surface area of the wing comparative to the weight of the body. Then, there is the orange-haired gliding lizard, a thick neck and heavy body. It has small wings, however, but despite its pace, it moves relatively fast. To pick up enough speed, it commonly needs to fold down its wing for a period of time. Therefore, they are seen on the tallest trees where they can safely dive to gain momentum to glide. The flight structure helps separate them ecologically, keeping them from direct opposition with one another for some of the rainforest's resources. In some areas of the forest, up to 8 different species of Draco may appear together. Generally, they are closely related species with unique, restrictive life histories living in the same area. The potential for opposition is likely. Geckos are another notable flying reptile. The wings lack the elaborate thoracic mutation of gliding lizards and are composed mainly of a large flap of skin along their flanks. The flaps stay rolled across the belly until the lizard leaps off a tree, the time they become inertly opened by air during the fall. Additionally, the body flaps are extended flaps along the sides of the head, neck, and tail, back sides of the hind limbs, and extensive webbing on the hands and feet. In flight, all of the wings are extended and splayed, creating the parachute effect. The frilly gecko, the smallest of them, travel from trees uniquely on the lowest part of the same tree to avoid predators. Geckos are cryptic species that are hidden during the day and active during the night, unlike the many arboreal agamids. In addition, their color patterns normally match the substrate where they stay, allowing them to go ignored. Then, the flat-tailed gecko, a species strongly related to the frilly gecko, is another example of intermediacy. It similarly folds skin along the head, body, limbs, and tail as the frilly gecko, but not nearly as developed. It lays these flaps out on the trunk of the tree to prevent the curving of the body from a shadow where it meets the trunk, to give away its location. These flaps inertly open up like other geckos do when the gecko jumps from one branch to another, and this imparts even a small advantage by extending the length of the jump. Because of the lack of limbs and other adjuncts, snakes are unlikely a group of vertebrates to develop. Although in peninsular Malaysia there are 3 closely related species of snakes with the ability to glide for significant distances. These are the tree snakes. The flat, open body works like a parasail, and its rolling movements in flight, similar to a spinning frisbee, prevents it from overturning. Before leaping, tree snakes hang the uncoiled forepart of the body off the branch in their like AJ. Next, by shaking the body upward in tandem, reaching outward by rapidly smoothing its coils and releasing, they'll hold on the branch. The snakes take flight. They also enlarge the ribcage as a defense device to expose brightly colored markings on the scales.